Alright, the first video got cut a little bit short. I think I was just finding the restrictions, so it shouldn't have been too hard. So if you have any questions, see me about the restrictions. Let's go ahead and look at number 5. So this one is a little bit different. What I noticed on this is that we've got a complex fraction here, and then just a rational fraction there. So we need to first get the complex fraction simplified down. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for our LCD amongst that, and the LCD is x. So I'm going to multiply the top by x and the bottom by x. So what I've done, for those of you that are watching this after we've already moved on, you notice there's no equal sign, so we treat this a little bit differently. We multiply the numerator by the LCD and the denominator by the LCD. And as you distribute this, we distribute the x over the 2. That looked bad, didn't it? Let's get to this 2. And that will give us 2x. And then we're going to distribute the x to the 4 over x, and that just gives us 4. In the denominator, we're going to distribute the x to the 3, and that gives us 3x. And distribute the x to the 6 over x, and that just gives us 6. And then we have what we started with originally, the 2 over x. So what I notice about this is it looks like we have things that can factor. So the numerator factors to 2 times the quantity x plus 2. The denominator factors to 3 times the quantity x plus 2. And good news, those x plus 2's reduce out. So now I'm left with 2 over x plus 2 over 3. And the LCD here is 3x. So I'm going to multiply the first term by 3 over 3, the second term by x over x, and I get 6 over 3x, let's put them together, 6 plus 2x all over 3x. And there's our answer. So then we look at our restrictions, we can see that x cannot be 0. And then as we look at the denominator, we also need to know where 3 plus 6 over x is 0. And this is 0 at x equals -2. So our restrictions are x cannot be 0, x cannot be -2. That out of here. Okay. So moving on, number 6. Pretty straightforward. There's only one fraction in that. So the LCD is that single denominator. Multiply top and bottom by x. You should get x over x plus 2. And we know x cannot be 0 or -2. Alright, that's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and move on to 7. 7, if we look at those denominators, we would see we'd have a LCD of 4x. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by 4x and the denominator by 4x. Again, the reason we can do this is the value of this thing in yellow is equal to 1, so I'm multiplying that expression by 1. This is different than when we have an equal sign. Equal sign makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to distribute this 4x into the 1 over x, and that would give me, the x's reduce out, so that would give me 4, plus, I'm going to distribute into the 1/2. 1/2 of 4x is 2x, so plus 2x, my divisor bar. I'm going to distribute the 4x into the 1 over x, that leaves us with 4. And 4x into that. It's supposed to be a minus 1/4. And that would give us minus x. All right, so we can factor the top, but factoring the top doesn't help us any, so go ahead and we get that for an answer. You see in your restrictions, when is the denominator 0? So this thing right here is 0 when x is equal to 4, so x cannot equal 4. If we look at the original denominator and see when that's 0, we actually find that we found that restriction earlier. So this works out to, if you add the 1/4 to both sides, oops, sorry about that. So 1 over x equals 1/4. So x cannot be 4. But the last thing we need to consider is that 1 over x, so we can't have 0 either because of the 1 over x term here. So, all right, sorry, I jumped around a little bit on that one. Had some interruptions. So let's go ahead and, that was the last one for the worksheet, so we can go ahead and look at the bookwork. And let me take a minute to grab that one. All right, so number 31 from the book starts off as x over 3 minus 6 all over 10 plus 4 over x. We see our LCD amongst the little fractions there is 3x. So my LCD is 3x. I'm going to multiply the big numerator and denominator by 3x. 3x over 3x. And this will get all of those little fractions away. So we'll start with 3x times x over 3. And that gives us x squared minus 6 times 3x and that'll give us 18x all over 10 times 3x. So the bottom 3x times the 10 gives us 30x. 3x times 4 over x, and that gives us 12. So the top will factor. We're going to get x times x minus 18. The bottom will factor to 6 times 5x plus 2, but that factorization doesn't really help us any. So we'll look at our restrictions and we'll see that in this denominator, if you solve this for, set it equal to 0 and solve for x, you get x cannot be negative 2/5. And if we go back up to our original problem, we see we can't have a 0 in that 4 over x, so x cannot be 0. And those are your restrictions. Grab the next one. All right, this is 33. I'm going to use a different method on this one. If you want to see the method we've been using, I think there's a form posted in our shared folder. So what I'd like to do here is I'd like to see, because the numerator is already one big fraction, I want to get the denominator to be one big fraction. And in doing that, then instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the LCD of just the bottom, so the LCD of the bottom, or the denominator, I guess if I were a math teacher is what I should say, the denominator is x times x plus 1. And what I want to do is I want to get everything to have that denominator. So I'm going to multiply this first fraction is missing the x, so I'm going to multiply it by x over x. The second fraction is missing the x plus 1, so I'm going to multiply that by x plus 1 over x plus 1. What we're going to get here then is the numerator stays the same, 16 over x minus 2. the denominator is going to become 4x plus, when I distribute that 6, I'm going to get 6x plus 6 all over, and then I just have that one denominator, x times x plus 1. Let me simplify this. So that equals 16 over x minus 2 all over 10x plus 6 all over x times x plus 1. And now I'm going to take the bottom here and take this denominator, and instead of dividing by, what this means is this red line, or this line I'm highlighting means divide by that. I'm going to multiply it by its reciprocal. So this will equal, let's give me a little space here. This will equal the numerator as it sits, 16 over x minus 2, times the flip of the bottom, x times x plus 1, all over, I'm going to go ahead and take out that 2. So that 10x plus 6 becomes 2 times the quantity, 5x plus 3. And then I can simplify. So we'll get some reduction in the 16 and the 2. And I think that's going to be it. So the final answer is going to be 8x times x plus 1 all over x minus 2 times 5x plus 3. And we'll look for our restrictions. So in this denominator, x cannot be 2 or negative 3/5, or as we look at the top, looks like we've got a 2 and a negative 1 and a 0. So let's add those in. We'll add in the 2, right? So we've just got a negative 1 and a 0. And those are our restrictions. Alright, here's number 35. So if we look at this, our LCD is x plus 2 and x minus 2. Hopefully you can recognize that factorization. X squared minus 4 is x plus 2, x minus 2. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by x plus 2 and x minus 2 to get rid of all these little fractions. And let's start distributing. So we'll start with Mr. Orange is going to come all the way over here. And that will give us x minus 2's cancel, so we're going to have 3 times the quantity x plus 2. Mr. Red is going to distribute here. The whole denominator cancels, so we just get minus 6. Big divisor, moving down. We're going to distribute this over here. The x plus 2's cancel, and that'll give us 3 times the quantity x minus 2. And we're going to distribute here, and the x minus 2's cancel, and that's going to give us just x plus 2. So now we need to simplify. So we're going to get 3x plus 6 minus 6 over 3x minus 6 plus x plus 2. And that'll give you 3x over 4x minus 4. While there is factorization, it doesn't really help us any. When we look at our restrictions, we know that x cannot be 1, x cannot be 2, or negative 2. And looks like I'm about out of time, so I guess that'll have to do it.